it helps prepare kids for Staar. And I know this is weird because it's not about benchmarking or anything like that. It's about allowing kids time and space to really practice in a safe environment, not overly punitive. When kids put themselves out there in writing, you have to remember that they are putting themselves out there. And we have to, build on what they have. You can't say everything in a paper is bad. Everything has to be thrown away. There have to be things in that paper that teachers recognize as being a potential building block to do something with. And I think we have to have safe classrooms. I think that's important. And then I think we have to see the big picture, that we're not only preparing kids for the test, we're preparing kids for high academic achievement in writing. I mean, really, that's the goal, right? If you have high academic achievement in writing, are they going to be able to demonstrate that achievement on the test? Most likely, yes. Unless the test is a bad measure, which I think our test is not. I think our test is a good measure. And then, this is kind of the last thing. Coherent scaffolded programs. What does that mean? It means K-5. K-5. It means 6A. It means links between 5 and 6. It means links between 8 and high school. It means talking to the teacher in the next grade and talking to the teacher below, and teaching writing every year, having a shared vision of what writing classrooms should be, and having expectations. You know, 4th grade teachers have to talk to 3rd grade teachers and say, we have to have kids coming into 4th grade that know these things in writing. They have to come with these skills. And then we're going to build on those skills, because if we can't, they're not going to be ready for the 4th grade test. So that's, I think, important to remember, and also using the concepts and skills that kids already know as building blocks for teaching them new concepts and skills. All right. So, personal narrative reminders. Well, one thing is, kids have to thread all the way through the look, think, write. And they just have to really know what they're writing about. That's a really important thing. The second thing is, I think this is true. All experiences are not created equal. They've got to pick an experience that is not too big for one page. They have to think about whether the experience is memorable, important, meaningful enough to write about. Remember, in 7th grade, they have to do that extension. And that's here's what we found out from last year. 7th graders that picked, there were some 7th graders that wrote about things that were just, they had a hard time extending it, because it was just this kind of throwaway experience. And the kids that really had the best extensions were the kids who seemed like they chose carefully. Like they chose something that was really memorable or important to them. And they could extend more sort of consciously and naturally. The other thing is, sometimes kids want to choose an experience that's too far back in their childhood, and they don't really remember it well enough. And what happens is, you get very general language. You start getting a very general, you don't really get a good sense of the experience. And I think sometimes, like, you know, when kids write about something that happened to them when they were 3, it's hard to remember exactly, you know, the details of something from that's really far back in your childhood. And it seems like kids do better if the experience they pick is a little bit closer to them. All right. You have to have some kind of a storyline in the personal narrative. And you have to move through time, even if it's just a little piece of time. The second bullet is a huge problem. And let me tell you why. You know how in tax, they had 2 pages, and they could just kind of like write things that didn't really move their piece forward that much, but if they kept going, they could kind of write their way in 1 page. You just can't write your way in. Kids are including these extraneous details that do not add to their personal narrative. We're actually seeing this in literary too. We're seeing the same problem in high school. And in personal narrative, it's like the experience is playing in this basketball game. Well, the kid starts from the very beginning of the day. The basketball game was like after school.
Right.
And so you get the kid waking up, the alarm clock goes off, he walks down to breakfast, he goes to school, he takes the bus home, he puts his uniform on. By that time, this kid is 15 lines in. And none of that is really the experience. And you're going, whoa. He only had 11 lines to write about the experience, and he spent 15 lines like on parts of the day. I mean, it was all in the same day, but it's this bed-to-bed thing. But it didn't really contribute to the student's real piece. And that, I would say, is a major problem. They should be writing in first person. It's a personal narrative. They should not be writing in third person. They should be writing in first person. And they cannot write fiction. They cannot write fantasy. They can't write an unrealistic